My friends, there comes a moment in life when you must look at the mirror and meet the person who has been whispering to you all along, "You deserve better than this." And the moment you finally believe that voice, everything changes. Because whether you realize it or not, every day you are teaching the world how to treat you by what you accept, by what you tolerate, and by what you rise above. Respect is not demanded, it is demonstrated. Boundaries are not walls, they are declarations of self-worth, and your silence is never empty. It speaks loudly about what you are willing to carry and what you are no longer willing to endure. You teach people how to treat you when you choose dignity over approval, when you choose truth over comfort, when you choose peace over chaos, and when you choose yourself, even when choosing yourself disappoints others. There will be days when saying no feels heavy. There will be moments when walking away feels like breaking apart, but I promise you, nothing breaks you more than allowing someone to handle you with hands that were never meant to hold your heart. Stand firm in who you are. Stand tall in what you deserve, and stand unshaken in the truth that your life, your spirit, and your heart are too precious to be mishandled. Remember this, you are not here to shrink. You are not here to bend your soul to fit into someone else's comfort. You are here to show the world how a person with self-respect, self-love, and self-trust walks through this life. And when you do that, when you honor your worth with unwavering grace, people will learn. People will adjust. People will rise, or they will fall away. Either way, you win, because your life will finally match the standard you set. Teach the world who you are by never forgetting what you deserve. There is a quiet truth many people spend their whole lives trying to outrun. You are the one who teaches others how to treat you. Not through speeches, not through arguments, not through force, but through what you permit, what you ignore, and what you continue to entertain. Every time you allow someone to speak to you with disrespect, and you choose silence over self-respect, you set a new standard for how they can approach you. Every time you excuse unkindness as just their personality, you teach them that your feelings are negotiable. And every time you swallow your pain to keep the peace, you show them that your comfort is worth more than your dignity. Treatment is rarely accidental. It is learned behavior gathered from your responses. What you allow becomes instruction, and it does not happen suddenly. It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. One day you let a harsh word slide because you don't want to start an argument. Then you overlook a broken promise because you hope it won't happen again. Days turn into patterns, and patterns turn into expectations. Soon the disrespect that once made you pause becomes something you've learned to live with. But the world is always watching, whether consciously or not. Your reactions or your lack of them become a silent curriculum. People take notes, they memorize your limits, they test how far they can go. And unless you rewrite your own rules, they will keep playing by the ones you created through your tolerance. But here is the power hidden beneath that truth. If you can teach people to mistreat you by accepting what hurts you, then you can also teach people to treat you with respect by choosing what honors you. Every boundary you draw is a lesson. Every time you say, "This is not acceptable," you are teaching someone that your heart is not a playground. Every time you walk away from what diminishes you, you are showing the world you will not shrink to fit into someone else's comfort. You are the instructor of your value, not the audience to someone else's judgment. And the moment you reclaim that authority, your life begins to shift. Of course, learning to assert this truth requires courage, the kind of courage that shakes your voice the first few times you use it. Because saying no, when you have lived your whole life saying yes, is uncomfortable. Refusing disrespect when you once tolerated it feels like breaking a habit that has shaped you for years. You may feel guilty. You may feel selfish. You may fear that people will leave, and some will. But the ones who walk away when you begin valuing yourself were never meant to stay. Not because they were evil, but because they benefited from your silence. They were nourished by your self-sacrifice. When you grow, you naturally outgrow the environments in which your old self survived. As you rise into your self-worth, you begin to see treatment differently. You begin to notice that real love does not demand your silence. True friendship does not ask you to lower your standards to keep the connection alive. Healthy people adjust when you express your needs. They don't punish you for having them. They listen, they learn, they respect the boundaries you set because they respect the heart that set them. But this awareness only comes when you stop justifying mistreatment and start observing it with honesty. When you stop making excuses for behavior that drains you and start acknowledging the cost of allowing it to continue. And finally, you discover the deepest truth of all. Your life transforms the moment you decide that your value is non-negotiable. When you show the world through your actions, your tone, your choices, that you will no longer accept what wounds your spirit, the world adapts. People adjust their behavior. Situations shift. Relationships change shape. And even if nothing outside of you moves right away, you move into a higher version of yourself, one rooted in self-respect. You become a person who does not merely hope for better treatment, but expects it. And once you expect it, you attract it, because the energy of your worth becomes unmistakable. It becomes your language. It becomes your protection. And it becomes the standard the world must rise to meet. There is a misunderstanding many people carry from childhood into adulthood, that setting boundaries makes you difficult, demanding, or unkind. But the truth is the opposite. Boundaries are among the most loving, respectful, and necessary gifts you can give both to yourself and to the people around you. A boundary is not a wall meant to shut someone out. It is a door that defines how you wish to be approached. It is a way of saying, I know my worth, and I refuse to let anything or anyone diminish it. When you set a boundary, you are not creating conflict. You are creating clarity. And clarity is what healthy relationships thrive on. People who misunderstand boundaries often do so because they benefit from your lack of them. As long as you remain available at every hour, forgiving of every mistake, tolerant of every inconsistency, they remain comfortable. But your comfort matters too. Your peace matters too. And when you finally say, I cannot continue like this, you are not being harsh, you are being honest. Boundaries are honesty in action. They communicate your emotional limits, your expectations, and your personal values without needing to raise your voice or defend your worth. They are the quiet but powerful declaration that your well-being is not up for negotiation. Learning to enforce boundaries requires unlearning old habits, the habit of pleasing everyone but yourself, the habit of sacrificing your happiness to keep others comfortable, the habit of shrinking your truth so others don't feel uncomfortable in its presence. These habits often come from a place of fear, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. But fear has never been a reliable teacher. It teaches you to survive, not to thrive. Boundaries, however, teach you something different. They teach you to honor your needs, to protect your emotional landscape, and to build relationships grounded in mutual respect rather than silent resentment. And yes, boundaries will be tested. Not because you are wrong for setting them, but because people are used to the version of you who lived without them. When you start saying no, the world pauses. When you begin choosing rest over obligation, some may be startled. When you stop explaining your decisions and start trusting your intuition, people may ask what changed. But nothing changed, you simply stopped abandoning yourself. And the moment you stop abandoning yourself, you stop allowing others to abandon you too. Boundaries do not create distance. They prevent damage. They are the guardrails that keep your heart from falling into the same wounds over and over again. What you will discover is that the people who truly care for you do not resist your boundaries. They respect them. They do not guilt-trip you for choosing yourself. They do not shame you for speaking your truth. They do not try to twist your limits into accusations. Instead, they adjust, they listen, they ask questions. They learn how to love you the way you need to be loved, not the way they assume you should be. Healthy people thrive on clear boundaries because they create safety, emotional safety, psychological safety, relational safety. Boundaries create an environment where authenticity can breathe without fear of being stepped on. Ultimately, setting boundaries is an act of deep self-love. It is a reminder to yourself that you are worthy of protection, deserving of peace, and responsible for your own emotional reality. Boundaries are a way of telling the world, I will not let you teach me to abandon myself. And once you draw those lines not with anger but with confidence, not with fear but with self-respect, your life begins to shift. You stop settling. You stop apologizing for your needs. You stop welcoming chaos disguised as connection. And you begin attracting people who understand that loving you means honoring the space you require to remain whole. Boundaries do not close your heart, they preserve it. They shape a life in which you can give, heal, trust, and love without losing yourself in the process. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of communication. Some people believe silence means weakness, others assume it means agreement, and many use silence as a way to avoid conflict. But silence is far more powerful than that. It is a language of its own one that can either protect you or slowly break you from the inside. When you keep quiet in moments when your heart is crying for expression, your silence becomes permission. It tells others that their behavior is acceptable, even if every part of you knows it is not. Silence can be a sanctuary, yes, but it can also be a prison if used in the wrong moments. When you choose silence out of fear, you train the world to treat you as someone whose emotions do not require attention. You teach people to overlook your pain because you hide it so well. You teach them to dismiss your boundaries because you never say when they're being crossed. And you teach them to take advantage of your kindness because you never speak when you feel taken for granted. This kind of silence becomes a slow erosion of your spirit. It drains your strength, not all at once, but through 100 small moments where you swallow your truth to keep the peace. Eventually, the weight of all you never said becomes heavier than any argument you were trying to avoid. But silence, when chosen with intention rather than fear, is a force of strength. It becomes a way of saying, I will not waste my breath explaining myself to those committed to misunderstanding me. It becomes a shield against people who try to pull you into arguments that go nowhere, whose sole purpose is to drain your energy. In this form, silence is not surrender, it is strategy. It is emotional maturity. It is the wisdom to know when speaking will bring healing and when it will only feed chaos. Intentional silence is the sound of discipline, self-respect, and inner peace. There will be times when breaking your silence feels terrifying. Moments when your voice trembles because it's been quiet for too long. Speaking up after years of holding everything inside is like learning to walk again, shaky, uncomfortable, frightening. But the first step is always the hardest. Once you allow your voice to rise, even softly, it begins to wake up the parts of you that have been asleep. Each time you speak your truth, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Each time you express your needs, you remind the world that your heart matters, that your emotions deserve space, that your boundaries have value. And slowly, the silence that once weakened you becomes the silence you choose rather than the silence you fear. The people around you will react differently when you break your silence. Some will finally see the strength you've been hiding. Some will listen with new respect because they realize you were never quiet out of weakness. You were quiet out of survival. Others may feel threatened because your voice disrupts the comfort they had in your silence. But no matter how they respond, your courage is not for them. It is for you. It is for the person you are becoming, someone who no longer trades self-respect for approval, someone who refuses to disappear inside a silence that keeps them small. Ultimately, silence becomes either your greatest tool or your deepest wound, depending on how and when you use it. When your silence protects your peace, it is power. When it protects someone else's comfort at the cost of your well-being, it becomes harm. The world will always interpret your silence, whether you intend it or not. So let your silence speak truth, not fear. Let it reflect strength, not suppression. Let it show the world that you know when to speak and when to stand still, and that your voice, whether loud or silent, is guided by self-respect, not by the desire to be accepted. And once you master that balance, you will never again be misunderstood by your own heart. There comes a time in every person's life when they must understand the difference between being selfless and being self-abandoning. Many of us were raised to believe that choosing ourselves is an act of selfishness, that prioritizing our needs means we are neglecting the needs of others. But choosing yourself is not an act of betrayal. It is an act of survival. When you choose yourself, you are simply acknowledging that your heart, mind, and spirit require care too. You cannot pour from a cup that has long been empty. You cannot uplift others while sinking in your own silence. The world may not always applaud you for choosing yourself, but your soul will thank you every day you do. Choosing yourself means listening to the quiet voice inside you that says, "I matter too." It means honoring your exhaustion instead of pushing past it. It means saying no when your body is begging you to rest. It means ending conversations that drain you, distancing from people who disrespect you, and walking away from situations that suffocate your growth. Every act of self-preservation is a reminder that your well-being is not optional. You are not a machine built for endless giving. You are a human being worthy of gentleness, worthy of rest, and worthy of making choices that protect your peace. The people who depend on your kindness may resist this shift. They may label your self-respect as selfishness because they were accustomed to your self-sacrifice. They may question your decisions, guilt trip your boundaries, or try to convince you that you are changing. But you are not changing, you are returning to yourself. You are reclaiming the parts of you that you gave away too freely. You are learning the sacred art of not abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. You are learning that love built on sacrifice alone is not love. It is dependency, and dependency will always demand more than your spirit can afford. Choosing yourself is not about rejecting others. It is about refusing to reject yourself. You are allowed to take a break from the world without apology. You are allowed to protect your energy from those who drain it without explanation. You are allowed to say, "I can't do that right now," without feeling guilty for having limits. Limits do not make you weak. They make you human. In fact, people who love you genuinely will honor your limits instead of punishing you for having them. They will celebrate your growth instead of fearing it. They will support your desire to heal instead of resenting it. When you finally begin choosing yourself, something extraordinary happens. Your life starts to shift in ways you never expected. You stop settling for half-hearted relationships because you finally understand your worth. You stop chasing after people who don't value you because you realize you no longer need their validation. You stop saying yes to every request because you have learned that your time, your peace, and your spirit are precious resources. Choosing yourself teaches you how to receive the kind of love you have always given wholehearted, intentional, and full of respect. And ultimately, the most important truth emerges. Choosing yourself is the foundation of teaching others how to treat you. You cannot expect the world to value you when you consistently devalue you yourself. You cannot ask for respect while betraying your own needs. The way you treat yourself becomes the standard you set for everyone else. When you choose yourself, you send a powerful, unspoken message. I am worthy of kindness. I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of love, and I refuse to accept anything less. And once you believe that deeply and without hesitation, your entire life transforms not because people suddenly change, but because your worth no longer negotiates with their behavior. There is a silent courage that grows inside you long before you ever take the first step away from what hurts you. Walking away is rarely a sudden decision, it is usually the final chapter of a long, hidden struggle. You endure, you hope, you try, you forgive, you bend, you stretch, and you hold on longer than anyone realizes. Not because you are weak, but because you care deeply, because you believe in people, because you want things to work. But there comes a moment when something inside you quietly says, "No more." And that moment, though painful, is the beginning of your freedom. Walking away is not an escape from responsibility. It is an act of responsibility toward your own soul. You see, walking away is not about giving up. It's about recognizing when something is no longer aligned with the person you are becoming. It takes strength to stay, yes, but it takes a deeper strength to leave when staying means betraying yourself. Anyone can cling to what is familiar, even when it hurts. But it takes a brave spirit to choose the unknown over the unbearable. It takes courage to release what once brought comfort, but now creates chaos. You walk away not because the situation is hopeless, but because you are no longer willing to lose yourself in the process of holding on. Sometimes walking away means stepping out of relationships that have grown toxic. Sometimes it means leaving friendships where only one person is doing the loving. Sometimes it means letting go of commitments that drain you or environments that diminish your light. And sometimes walking away simply means choosing peace over promises that were never kept. This kind of walking away is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and deeply personal. It is a private decision that whispers, "I deserve more than this." And that whisper becomes the guiding force that leads you out of places your soul has outgrown. Walking away will never be easy. The heart remembers what the mind wants to forget. You may replay conversations, question your decisions, or wonder if you should have tried just a little bit harder. But with time and a great deal of self-honesty, you begin to understand that walking away was not the loss you feared. It was the lesson you needed. Some people are not meant to walk the entire journey with you. Some relationships are not meant to last a lifetime. Their purpose was to awaken something inside you, to teach you how to love better, how to stand taller, how to choose yourself even when you feel lonely. Walking away teaches you that loyalty to yourself is not betrayal, it is evolution. And though it may hurt at first, walking away creates space for healing. It gives you room to breathe, to reflect, to rediscover the parts of yourself that were silenced while you were trying to keep something alive that was already fading. When you walk away from what breaks you, you walk toward what builds you. You walk toward healthier relationships, toward deeper peace, toward greater clarity, and toward a stronger sense of who you are. You begin to realize that endings are not punishments, they are redirections. They are the universe's way of clearing the path for something better, something truer, something worthy of the person you are becoming. Ultimately, walking away is a declaration of self-worth. It says, "I honor myself too much to stay where I am not valued." It says, "I choose peace over chaos, truth over comfort, and growth over familiarity." It says, "I will not shrink to fit into places where my soul cannot breathe." And the moment you take that step, no matter how small, no matter how shaky, you reclaim your power. You teach the world that your heart is not a place for inconsistency, disrespect, or neglect. Walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom, it is strength. It is the profound understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to let go. Your standards are not rules you impose on others, they are the reflection of how deeply you value yourself. They are the quiet truths that shape the way people show up in your life. When your standards are high, it is not arrogance, it is awareness. You have lived enough, learned enough, lost enough, and healed enough to know what your spirit needs in order to thrive. Your standards are simply the boundaries you create to protect the heart you worked so hard to rebuild. And the people who truly belong in your life will never fear those standards. They will rise to meet them. Many people learn too late that you do not attract what you want, you attract what you believe you deserve. If you believe you deserve inconsistency, you will excuse it. If you believe you deserve half love, you will settle for it. If you believe you deserve chaos because it's familiar, you will continue to welcome it. But the moment you raise your standards, everything begins to shift. Suddenly you no longer tolerate broken promises, vague intentions, or relationships that leave you guessing instead of grounded. Your standards become the filter that separates those who love the idea of you from those who are ready to love the reality of you. Raising your standards will cost you people, but it will never cost you your peace. The truth is, not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some are there to teach lessons you didn't know you needed. Some are there to show you the parts of yourself that you still need to heal. And some are there simply to remind you how far you've come. When you elevate your standards, the people who are only comfortable with your lower version will naturally fall away. They may call you difficult. They may call you demanding. They may say you have changed. But you didn't change, you grew, and growth requires new standards. Your standards are not about being perfect. They are not about expecting flaws to disappear or mistakes to never happen. They are about consistency, respect, honesty, and effort. They are about requiring the same level of care that you give. They are about refusing to play small just to make someone else feel big. Real love will never ask you to shrink your standards. Real friends will never guilt you for having them. Real connections thrive when expectations are clear, when communication is honest, and when mutual respect is non-negotiable. Your standards do not push good people away, they attract them. And the beautiful thing is this. Once you set high standards for how others treat you, you naturally begin to set higher standards for how you treat yourself. You no longer speak to yourself with harshness. You no longer settle for environments that suffocate your potential. You stop ignoring the red flags your heart once excused. You start choosing peace over promises, growth over comfort, and authenticity over approval. You begin to understand that you are the keeper of your own energy, and you guard it with wisdom. The more you respect yourself, the more the world mirrors that respect back to you. In the end, your standards determine the quality of your relationships because they reflect the quality of your relationship with yourself. When you honor your worth, you stop fearing loss. You stop begging for attention. You stop clinging to people who take more than they give. Instead, you stand rooted in the truth that the right people will not only respect your standards, they will match them, exceed them, and help you rise even higher. Your standards are not burdens, they are blessings. They shape a life where love is intentional, respect is mutual, and you are finally met at the level you deserve. There comes a moment in every life when you realize that the world treats you according to the lessons you teach it. Not through your words, but through your actions, through your boundaries, through your courage, through your silence, through your standards, and through the quiet, unwavering way you choose yourself even when others don't. The truth is simple, but it is not easy. You are responsible for protecting the light within you. You are responsible for honoring your worth. You are responsible for walking away from what dims your spirit and walking toward what steadies your soul. And when you finally decide that your value is not up for debate, when you stop negotiating your worth in places that cannot recognize it, your life begins to rise. The people who belong will grow with you. Those who don't will fall away. Not because you are cold, but because you refuse to continue teaching the world a lesson that harms you. You begin to attract relationships rooted in respect, conversations grounded in honesty, love that is steady, intentional, and gentle with your heart. The greatest transformation does not happen when others treat you differently. It happens when you treat yourself differently. When you no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as affection. When you no longer excuse behavior that drains your spirit. When you stop shrinking to fit inside spaces that were never meant to hold your growth. You become someone who does not beg to be understood or chosen or loved, because you finally understand, choose, and love yourself. This is the truth you carry forward. You teach people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. And when your life becomes an example of self-respect, the world has no choice but to rise to meet it. Walk forward with that power. Walk forward with that clarity. Walk forward with that truth anchored deep in your spirit. Because the moment you honor your worth, everything in your life begins to honor you back.